Story RH, the podcast that makes a long story short.
Welcome to all.
History is made of stories.
In this episode, we'll be talking about HRIS properties and how they can support HR policies.
Some people approach their HRIS by way of a survey of products and publishers on the market, instead of first thinking about what they need. Others assume things will just fall into place and avoid getting too involved with a topic they see as overly technical.
But it's actually very important to understand that your HRIS can serve as an armed wing for your HR policy. But if you're not careful, it can do the exact opposite and make your HR policy harder to implement.
So, the impact of HRIS properties on HR policy. What's the story?
First, let's take a closer look at definitions.
An HRIS is a system, but that's easy to forget, especially when the system is made up of a single piece of ERP software, for example.
But an information system is really a collection of components that help you to manage business processes. So, an HRIS is a collection of IT components devoted specifically to HR processes.
And these components can be exploited and hosted in-house, or by a third party, like a SaaS provider, for example. The system they make up, the HRIS, will more or less manage all HR processes.
When you take a closer look at the definition of an HRIS, you realize just how complicated the concept of a system can be.
As a system, an HRIS has its own unique properties. To make this easier to understand, let's imagine a group of people at a dinner, for example.
Even if all of the friends you invite are nice and open-minded, you still might end up with a disaster on your hands because the group as a whole becomes taciturn and unfriendly.
In other words, a system has its own unique properties, which are neither the properties of the majority of the components nor their sum.
And these unique properties can play a crucial role. And that's where the HR policy comes into play. In simple terms, you have to make sure that the properties of the HRIS don't clash with the policy you implement, now or in the future.
It's important for the HRIS, via its properties, to be a political ally and armed wing for HR. Its job is to support you.
Let's turn to a concrete example to illustrate what we mean.
Imagine a very decentralized company where the corporate culture, a key to the group's success, is based on giving subsidiaries a maximum amount of leeway. So, in a group like this, rolling out an extremely integrative normative HRIS, which imposes a single way of doing things, would go against the culture.
And there's every reason to expect that this highly normative HRIS will not meet the subsidiaries' expectations, neither in philosophical nor in operational terms, since each of them will have developed their own way of doing things.
Okay, but what if you want to get them to toe the line? Would it be a good idea in that case?
Not really, because they'd most likely just go around the system imposed from on high, and then you'd end up with different versions of your HRIS at the local level, and all the uniformity you hope to achieve would be lost. And on top of that, you wouldn't even be able to find the information you needed.
What's important is consistency between these properties and what you aim to do. It's not about the sophistication of the HRIS per se, but about how closely it conforms to HR policy.
And it's especially important since the HRIS vehicles a certain image of the HR department and what it does. The HRIS is solely responsible for a large portion of the employee experience, so it also weighs heavily in the opinion they develop regarding HR through their experience.
In this area, the HRIS can embody who you are and what you aim to achieve to varying degrees. But that's another story.
To recap, an HRIS is a system with its own unique properties, which play a crucial role in its performance. It is very important to ensure that they are consistent with the basic non-negotiable principles of your HR policy. Is that right?
Exactly right. Way to make a long story short. Story RH, the podcast that makes a long story short.